Hey, it's Elise, and you're listening to Elise Gets Crafty. This is the podcast I started 7 years ago, and I'm really going to live up to that Elise Gets Crafty title this year as I share the behind the scenes of a year-long project that I'm going to be working on called Make 36. It's basically a really big craft project, but I think talking about the behind the scenes will be interesting for small business owners, for creative people, for people who love to set and work on long-term goals. Basically all the things I love. I really am excited to share more, and we'll be dropping a new episode once a month, usually between the 18th and the 20th. And I'm so glad you're here. So let's get into it. Let's talk about what this project is and where the idea came from. Hi, hello, month 5, back again. This past month, I have really started to feel the pressure of this project. And I think that's because a lot of when I first came up with the idea, for Make 36 in general, it was summer of 2020, and I had 6 months of runway to really get started. And during that time, I did a lot of prep. So, the first month, the letterpress prints were done. The coffee was fully planned. The quilt kits were mostly created, and the instruction guide and all that. And then, as we talked about back in March, the embroidery kit kind of came into my lap really quick, so I could just Tasmanian devil style spin in a circle and get that one done. But now I'm to what feels like the real meat, and sometimes what people call, the messy middle. I'm very much in the messy middle. I can't see the end of this project quite yet, but I also, I'm definitely, I don't want to say I'm losing steam. That's not true. I am feeling extremely excited still, but I'm just feeling I think the weight of the work, right? Mile 12 or mile 10, you're like, oh no, what did I sign up for? And that's kind of where I'm at right now. So quick little therapy session, I guess, before we get into it. This month's project I'm super excited about. It's a very craft heavy month, and I created 36 original cyanotypes, which is like painting with the sun is what it is. So there are 36 originals. They are going to be listed on this site on the 22nd at 1 p.m. Pacific, and no two are the same. Some are similar, but no two are the same. And so I want to talk in this episode about what cyanotype is, why I picked it, and get into some of the behind the scenes of what doing a project like this, doing 36 originals, what that looks like. And then talk a little bit about what I think is the difference between art and craft, and why I call myself a crafter instead of an artist. That's probably going to be real controversial, so hang on to your hats here. Okay, first, cyanotype. I knew from the beginning, back in July, that I was going to make big cyanotype art because I have a piece that I made in 2018 that hangs in my house, and I love it. And it fills a lot of bubbles for this entire project. One, it is something I can do. Like, we've talked about this, but you can't necessarily do 36 of something. You can't necessarily do 360 of something. But I knew I can make 36 large cyanotype prints. That was something that was doable. If you are like, what is cyanotype? I'm going to get there, I promise. But you can also go to the show notes and see a picture of what cyanotype looks like. And you can see a picture of the current piece of cyanotype art that hangs in my house for some context. So in 2018, we knew we were going to move, and I took a palm tree branch from my old house's yard, and I printed it, right? Like, I used the sun, I used the chemicals, I used water to make a print of this palm branch. And it was, it looks cool, it's graphic, but for me, it also had some sentimentality, right? And so when I was thinking back in July, what can I do? Part of what Make 29 was, and part of what Make 36 is finding projects that makes sense for me. So it's something that I've done in the past. It's a craft I've experimented with. It's something that seems like an Elise project. And this is one that, you know, was obvious. Like, I still have it hanging in my house. I plan to keep it hanging in my house. It's blue, which feels like one of my big colors, and it's plants, right? Like, remember when I did the 100A project? 100 plants on fabric? This is plants on paper, but plants make sense. San Diego makes sense. So when I thought, okay, I'm going to make 36, they're going to be similar, and I'm going to use palm branches from my current house. So in our front yard, we have 4 palm trees, and over the past couple months, I have nearly balded my palm trees as I've been using them to make these new original prints. So the 36 prints are, I don't even know if I should call them prints, 36 pieces of art are 22 by 30 inches, and they are on 100% cotton watercolor paper. And I ordered 46 pieces of paper, assuming I would mess up 10. That's pretty much right. I got my 30, so I made 46, and then I put them out and I picked the best 36, and that's what this project is, right? So I want to give a brief tutorial on what cyanotype is, how it works. There are so many tutorials that you can find with visuals that would potentially be more helpful. But the gist is there's 2 solutions that come in like a cyanotype kit, and I'll link to a kit. Like, I'll link to the exact one that I used. It's not hard to get. You just have to order it from an art supply store or Amazon or craft store. And so there's 2 solutions, and they have chemicals in them. And right before you're going to paint, you mix the solutions together, 1 part A, 1 part B, and then you have a couple hours to use that. I call it paint, but it is very watery. So you have a couple hours to use that liquid before the chemicals kind of, get too much light exposure and they don't work anymore. And then I used a big paintbrush and I just painted them right onto my paper. And I did this in my garage because you want to do it in low light. So my kids would be at school, the car would be out of the garage, and I put down big pieces of cardboard, just flattened boxes, and the paper down on the ground. And then I would just paint them with this cyanotype solution. And I did it, you want to be doing it in low light, because once that solution touches the light, it starts to turn color, right? It starts to turn. So I would do about 5, 6, 7 at a time and paint them, then give them a couple hours, and then they'd be ready to go, right? That chemical was ready now on the paper. So then I would come back in the garage, I would hide the ones I didn't want to be exposed yet. And then I would take a palm branch from the front yard, I would pop it on one of the sheets, and then I had a piece of clear plexiglass that you can pick up at like a hardware store. And I put the plexiglass on top of the palm tree, so creating a little sandwich. And then I would carry it out into the sun and let it sit for usually about 5 minutes. I always did this at highest noon. So when the sun was really high in the sky. It's interesting in San Diego, we have like May gray and June gloom. And so we have days where it doesn't get super sunny during our kind of like spring season. And so I would have to kind of time it around that. But let it sit for five minutes and then bring it back inside. And then the last step with cyanotype is you have to wash out these chemicals. So we have a sink in our garage that I could wash the prints. And as you do that, it's really cool. The color of the art changes, and the background, everything that was exposed to sun, turns blue, and the part that was blocked by the palm branch stays white. And it's just a unique process where it's not like it's not like one shade of blue and one shade of white. There's variations, and sometimes the palm branch is a little bit thinner, or it was like tilted a tiny bit, and so there's like a shadow or a shade or whatever. They're all so unique because of that. Even if I used the same branch, I would place the branch on the paper a little bit differently. Or sometimes, obviously, like I would flip the branch, rotate. So the result is cool. The result is these 36 originals. And I'm happy with them. I'm very excited with how they turned out. this was a project that, in theory, I was like, okay, I'm just going to make a bunch of cyanotypes. And I didn't think through, like, yeah, and then how are you going to list all of them? How are you going to photograph all of them? What are you going to do to get them on the site? And so that's kind of what I've been spending the past couple weeks on, is once I had the art, figuring out how to best package it, right? To share it with the internet, to sell it to the internet. Um, that's been the challenge of this one in a bigger way than I expected. What I ended up doing, what I am going to do, I haven't done it yet. I'm recording this on Wednesday night, and I'm going to get it together. But there's going to be 36 listings, so each piece will have its own listing. They're all the same price, but you'll have been able to see in advance. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure. No, you're not going to see the individual listings in advance, but you'll definitely, if you get the newsletter, if you go on my Instagram, you can at least see what we're talking about, right? You can see like, oh, I'm interested in this. This looks cool, or be like, oh, that's not for me, obviously. But you'll have like a general idea of what they are, and then each one, the name of each one is just the number. So on the back of each print, it's signed, or, it's named like one, like written out, ONE, and then signed and dated. So, yes, so there'll be 36 listings. As of now, as of this recording, I am not 100% sure if I'm going to offer them framed or not. I would like to be able to do that. I have one of the originals currently sent off to FrameBridge being framed. And my original hope was that I could offer them framed by FrameBridge. And all that would mean is if you purchased, let's say you purchase number 18, you could just have it shipped to you, right to your house, and that would be one price. Or you could purchase it framed, and then I would ship it directly to FrameBridge. FrameBridge would frame it and then ship it directly to you. That is what I'm trying to decide right now. That framing process would only be available for the US. If you purchased unframed, it will ship everywhere. So I haven't decided. This will be in the show notes, and it will be, so if you want to, figure out what I'm doing in advance, just elisejoy.com/podcast. You can see all the full details, because I'll know by the time that this goes live. But this is behind the scenes, and the behind the scenes are a little bit complicated and a little bit messy at times. So I'm still figuring this out, and I have a couple days to decide. So that's where we're at. I don't know, I feel this is a little TMI, but I'm also like, it's hard to run a small business, and it's hard to make choices. Something that's been interesting this past couple month, I guess this month has been when it's really been rough, is just, I'm completely overwhelmed. I'm in over my head, honestly, on this project, but in a good way. Like, if I could pick anything to be overwhelmed by, it's for sure a massive creative project, right? If you're going to be overwhelmed, that's like the dream. It's my dream. And what it comes down to is just kind of like problem solving. Like, that's what this is problem solving. And that's what I'm doing, which is really fun. I like to do that. Yeah. Oh, okay. So one other thing that is also going to be available when these launch, 1 p.m. on Tuesday, the 22nd, is, I thought, because there's only 36, and because I'm trying to think about like scale with this project, I'm trying to think about longevity. I'm trying to try some different things. So I'm also offering a 6-pack of downloadable art. So of the cyanotypes, right? So I took 6, I want to say, of my favorites, but like, I don't know, you'll see. They're all like similar-ish, but I took 6 that looked different-ish, but also obviously worked in a set, and I turned those into printable art that's ratioed at 8 by 10, but prints up to 16 by 20. And so you can buy this set of them, and then you can frame them, right? So you could buy a set and frame all 6 as 16 by 20s and like hang them in your hallway. and just have this like beautiful art. Or you could buy, obviously the set, it's just the set, but you may decide that like, oh, you only want to use one of them, right? You want to get one, you want to hang one 16 by 20 in your bathroom. Or maybe you want all 6 8x10s and you're going to frame them in a little grid over your desk. Maybe you want the 8x10s because you want to give them to your sisters because I don't know, like it's kind of hard to give art as a gift, but I don't know. You could turn them into postcards that are 4x5. You guys know how downloadable art works, but I liked the idea that they could work in a grid. So much of the art in my house is like grid. I do that a lot. I do rows a lot. I do 2 prints stacked a lot, and these worked out really well for that. I got to shoot some fun inspiration photos, both of the 8x6 or 8x10 in a grid, and then the 16 by 20 stacked. And I thought both looked really fun. And obviously those are super easy sizes to get framed. So cool. So that is another like kind of bonus product. This is definitely behind the scenes, but as I've been thinking about each month, I am thinking about that. I'm thinking like, how do I give this legs outside of the first project? And then let's say that the art sells out. I love the idea that I can have something downloadable that still lives on the site, right? So with the embroidery project back from March, you can still go on the website and buy the PDF and print the pattern and do the pattern yourself. Like you don't have to have the full kit. And for some of the projects that are coming up, oh boy, August in particular, it's going to be another pattern, like another pattern download. I hope. August is like my number one stress, and I'll touch base with you again in July and let you know how that's going. So we'll see. But this is something that's fun for me. It's fun to try out different printable options and see what works. So, yes. Okay. Gosh, this is a lot. I know. But I did want to talk a bit about something that I've been thinking about for this project, for 36 versus 29. And I think it's safe to say that this project is going better. It's safe to say it would be not great if this project wasn't going better than 29 because I am 7 years older, which means I have 7 years of experience, both as a business owner and as a crafter and as a person. I think that my point of view as a maker is clearer today than it was back in 2014. Is that right? Jeez. It'd be weird. It'd be weird if it wasn't quote unquote better. But I feel more confident about what I'm putting out there because I think just as a person, like you get more confidence, right? With age, as you try more things, as things don't necessarily work and you learn from that and you adjust, you kind of filter better, which is what, it feels like what I've done. I think also it's just the truth that my business is more stable today than it was in 2014. And so I can put forward like more money. I can invest much more in what I'm doing today than I could back in 2014. So this month is not a project that costs a ton of money. You can, like I said, you can like buy the materials for this at an art store. Like you can make this yourself, and you should if you want to. But when I had to buy like all the quilt fabric, that was a huge investment. This project that's coming up for June, which I'll obviously get to talk about next month, is very expensive, over the top expensive. And I'm not sure, I don't even know, I may have like been priced myself out, honestly. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but we'll figure it out. But the point of this project is just to try a lot of different things. And that's been an exciting thing for me. The second thing that's changed a lot is I just think I know, oh, I'm a crafter. I'm not an artist. And I've talked about this distinction before, but it always gets confusing and misinterpreted and misunderstood. So it's hard to talk about. But the reality is I I make this distinction for myself. This is what it means for me. I would never in a million years be like, you're an artist, you're a crafter to someone else. Similarly, I guess I don't really care what you think I am. Like I just feel like a crafter. And part of that is I think this is just me personally. I can replicate the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Like making 46 cyanotypes was not boring. It was very fun. Um, you know, it doesn't bother me to cut all that fabric from last time, or I don't know any of it. Like so many of the projects where you just have to do the same thing on repeat, I'm like there for it. Always good for me. So that's one way that I feel kind of like a crafter. Cyanotype is a project where the materials really do a lot of the work. And so I think like I think that, it takes an eye potentially to, decide kind of the placement of the leaf and, the tilt and the angle and paying attention to all of that. But as a crafter, I know that the materials can really pull their weight as well. I don't feel like the type of person that like creates magic. I think that often like the fabric creates magic, the pattern creates magic, and so I relate to that part a lot. And then I tend to gravitate towards projects that, to my eye, it's like pretty, but like that might be it. Like, oh, that's cute, but I'm not necessarily going to create a painting or a piece or a photo that really moves you and makes you think something. And art, I believe, does that. Like I can see art and be wow, like I understand the emotion and love it. I mean, that's why I love art. That's why I love artists. That's why I'm so glad that there are artists. Because for me, I'm like, oh yeah, I like how that looks. Like that looks good with my own work. Like I'm just trying to make it look quote unquote good. Like I'm not trying to do any sort of like more. It's not deeper than that. And so those are three things. And I think what I've learned is to lean into that. And so you're not going to see me painting this time, or, selling a photograph this time, because I'm more aware of what my strengths are. And that's a good thing. It's not the best to learn about your strengths and your weaknesses publicly, but, it's what I've done. And so this felt like a good example of something where I feel like this is a craft, but the result, is a large scale piece of art because I don't know what else to call it. So a large scale thing. I love big statement pieces, and I love that I was able to do this in a way that felt good for me, felt good for what I like to do. And this is something that a cyanotype palm tree piece is something that I have hanging in my house, that I've had hanging in my house for, 2 years. It'll hang in our next house. It's always going to hang. And so I love that I was able to replicate it in a way that made sense for this project. And I'm so excited to launch. As you can tell, I have a lot of details to work out. So my next couple days are going to be really busy, but by the time this goes up, I should have all the questions answered, and you can get links to everything. All of the good details will be in the podcast show notes. If you get my newsletter, you probably already know a bunch of this. But the originals, the 36 originals, and the unlimited set of 6 will be listed at elisejoy.com/shop on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. What are we in? June 22nd. So next week. Whew! Exciting. See you there.